Thank you so much for introducing the panel. We are so excited. It's always good to be able to interact with our stakeholders, with our partners. And this afternoon is very critical because we're talking about insurance. We're talking about the importance. We're talking about the why, the when, the how. But I'm not a specialist. So I'm going to be moderating, introducing our panel to come in and talk to us. And without a waste of time, let me introduce again Mr. Sadile Nzwani, who is the chairman of our advisory committee at Jurni, and also the general manager for Savrala. Tate Nzwani, maybe from your side, can I just get opening remarks for us and just a warm welcome to everyone who's participating and logged in online.
Thank you very much, Tsepo. Thanks for the invite. I really would like to welcome everyone. And once more, it's a pleasure to be able to engage on such important topics. I think in my capacity as the chair of Jurni, it's important to just highlight that, our part of our mandate is to ensure that, we get the guest houses and the tourism industry, particularly with a high focus on small business as well online, but also to ensure that they enjoy some sort of increased visibility, of their business for travelers, both locally and obviously internationally. However, with increased business comes increased liability. I think all of us have had so much on what I'm just about to mention, the fact that the COVID-19 pandemic has introduced, numerous challenges to human nature, which calls really for some sort of paradigm shift towards sustainable means to survive as business at large, particularly small business, which can really be a pillar for our economy. Jurni has obviously created such engagements with all of you and with all our stakeholders to create awareness, about the importance of insurance. I'm certainly not, a specialist myself, and I look forward to hearing from the specialists we've invited from SATIB. But I think it's important to just highlight just one or two things as far as why I believe personally, from personal experience, having started a small business myself a couple of years ago, insurance is an integral part of the risk management process. And just as business needs to develop, documents such as marketing plans, risk management plan, an emergency, response plan, and a media plan, it really needs to develop an insurance plan. And I think, I've indicated what COVID has done to us. So, the insurance plan also will determine which assets and hazards to the business, will be insured. And I'm sure we'll hear a whole lot of that from our specialist this afternoon. I must also just highlight, I think what was captured pretty well on the advert that was circulated by Jurni, the fact that it does tend to be a grudge purchase. Often you find this is one area where you say cheapest when you are challenged financially, you say this is one area I don't need insurance, and it's only when things really start going haywire that you see the need for insurance. So I really am looking forward to this engagement this afternoon, and I'd welcome participants and all our participants to engage with the specialists and to ask questions. And on that note, I'll reserve other comments for later. Thanks very much, Tsepo.
No, thank you very much, Chair. I think before I even bring our keynote speaker of today, let me introduce Rosemary van Staden, who's not a stranger to tourism. She's a business owner and she is the chairwoman who chairs an organization called National Accommodation Association of South Africa. And we've invited her because we believe that she could share with the public, with the stakeholders, about some of the challenges that she personally in her business has faced, or the importance of having insurance, and some of the things that her members have gone through, and why it's important for people to be insured as part of the growth in tourism. So Rosemary, welcome, and it's always a pleasure hosting you. We have traveled together all over the country, and now we are adjusting into the new normal of meeting online. Thank you for giving us the chance to just interview you as part of our webinar engagement.
Thank you very much. It's my honor to be on the panel today as chairperson of the Accommodation Association nationally. And we would like to share some more information why the importance is of being insured. And there's two things important for me that you need to have: insurance and medical aid, point blank.
And what are some of the challenges that...
You want me to express everything? Okay. Now, the main thing is challenges that we face is people who booked prior COVID and they couldn't stay. It was 2 days before the time, big cancellations came through of school groups, of people who, and we already got the deposits or full payments. But the guest houses also did receive, we also bought all the stuff that's needed for the for hosting that people, because it was school groups. You came under price to get the deal, including 2 meals. So now who's going to pay for your loss? Now they paid your deposit. Now the schools sue you because you you took their money. I had a school personally who trying to sue me now. They wanted all the food that we froze and all the juices we bought. We must send it to them now because they paid us a deposit. So that's things that we need to keep in mind. And if your insurance is correctly, they would have paid you for the cancellation. I know there's other insurance groups that had other rules in place that were happened, but the way I was insured, I'm talking now about me and 90% of my members, the way we were insured, that we got that money at least for coverage for the outstanding. Another thing that you need to keep in mind is liability. I mean, somebody comes and they slip in your house. I've got a person who, an American doctor who fell in a guest house and he broke his back severely. He's in a wheelchair today. They took him back to America. It happened here in Pretoria. The guest house had to close down because they didn't have enough liability. The man is in a wheelchair. His marriage is wrecked. So he comes with all these claims to South Africa, to the insurance company. If you go and fetch somebody at the airport, are you covered with driving that person, or quickly just take him to Menlyn or Sandton Mall or V&A Waterfront? Are you covered for driving around? And if you're in an accident, your staff, do you have coverage for your staff? Not a pension fund. We can't afford a pension fund, but if they anything happen and they die on your property, or they die on their way to work with a taxi, or they get ill on the job. If they get COVID on the job, what is your things in place? Do you have place where that you can isolate them? There's a lot of things that we need to keep in mind for being insured. Lightning. You can't think that lightning hit a place. My place were hit last year. It made cracks through my walls and it destroyed everything that was on the one side of the guest house. So you must never underestimate that you are insured correctly. Fire.
Wow. I think that is interesting, considering that a lot of people take these things for granted, that no, that won't happen to me. This I'm going to make sure that I'm careful. I'm going to make sure that I do things right. And just maybe moving away from Rosemary, let me welcome you, Leirel Bergman from SATIB. I think we invited you because we believed that you could share with the public and our stakeholders some of the importance of being insured. When are we supposed to be insured? At what point are we supposed to downgrade, upgrade? And what are some of the trends that you have seen? And what are some of your recommendations? So over to you, Leirel, and welcome.
Tsepo, thank you very much, and to all my other panelists, thank you for the welcome. I think Tsepo, Sandile touched a little bit on risk management and risk management plans, and I think Rosemary shared some real situations or scenarios which she has faced personally, and some of her guest houses have faced. And I think the point in all of this is risk is real. There's no getting away from that. Every single step we take in our lives is risk. And whether we do it consciously or subconsciously, we are always planning for risk in our lives. Unfortunately, in some instances where we are knowingly or cognizantly planning risk, we tend to cut corners a lot of the times, and we tend to look for the easiest or the quickest way to manage risk. And traditionally, I would say 90% of people in their personal capacity as well as business has viewed insurance as their primary risk management plan. And unfortunately, at some point in time, it may have been the best way to transfer that risk. But when you take into account catastrophes of late, I'm talking over the last 15 years, there have been significant catastrophes, and I'm speaking locally and internationally, where you've had massive storms, massive fires, tropical storms, cyclones that have caused significant damage. And the direct consequence of the sustained period of insurers having bad results has inevitably resulted in insurance becoming more and more expensive. And to be absolutely honest with you, we at SATIB are of the opinion or of the view that this will not change in the short term. We're going to be seeing losses continue in the way they had. I'm not sure if you followed it, but over the last 2 or 3 weeks ago, there was a significant event in the Suez Canal where a cargo ship actually ended up blocking the canal because it ran aground. The knock-on effect of that cargo ship, you would think that, okay, one cargo ship, probably a few $100 million and it's sorted. But there's a knock-on effect, because now a journey that would have taken you 2 weeks ends up taking you 6 weeks or a month. So there are delays, there's product spoilage. So there is a knock-on effect to a lot of these things, and we're seeing these events happening a lot more frequently. I want to bring it close to home. In the last 12 months, we've seen the devastating effect of COVID-19. A lot of people had insurance in place, but because this thing was so new and so unprecedented, no one had any idea of how insurance policies would respond. I would go so far as to say not even the insurers were sure of how they of how their products are supposed to respond. So I think, in essence, what I'm saying is, as business owners, as individuals, we need to constantly be cognizant of risk in our lives. We need to analyze the risk we face and, as far as possible, mitigate or eliminate those risks. If we're unable to eliminate the risks, at least try and control them to minimize the impact that an event would have on your life. And as a final step, if you're not able to mitigate or control the risk, then transfer the risk, which is essentially buying insurance. And in the risk management process, the transfer of risk is the most expensive option that you have.
Oh, I see I'm on mute. So what are some of the key areas that people should focus on, especially because there are so many insurance companies in our country? When we talk guest houses, when we talk bed and breakfast, when we talk accommodation, what are some of the key insurance products that you believe that the owners should have in place already? Like, it's given, you have to have this. Listening to Rosemary when she was talking, say some people don't want this one, some they want this one, but there's a risk. So what are some of those ones that you personally believe that our property owners should have in place right away when they start their business?
Sepo, I think that for a very long time, we have sold as much insurance products, classes as we could. Sometimes they were necessary, but maybe not critical at all time. And certainly in my time at SATIB, one thing that I've been taught, or one thing that I've learned, is the perspective that SATIB have when looking at insurance and looking at risk, as opposed to, and I'm speaking generally, but as opposed to just spending money on all kinds of insurance. Our view at SATIB is for our clients to first look at what's critical in their business. So when I say critical, Tsepo, you have a revenue generating asset, whether that be a guest house, whether it be a vehicle, even IP. So it's critical for us when advising our clients to ensure that your asset, your revenue generating asset, is protected. I mean, Rosemary shared an example. When you think lightning damage, the thing you think about first is probably your television or the surge of electricity that's going to blow up all of your electronics. But just listen to what Rosemary said. The bolt that hit her guest house was so intense that it actually caused cracks in the walls. Now, you wouldn't always think that my building is at risk for lightning damage. You would think my electronics, that's sort of our first thought, but it's important to cover your asset. And the result of a situation like that is you cannot put a guest in a room where there's a gaping wall, a gaping hole in the wall. You know, they can literally see the pool from the inside of their room. That means that room is out of commission. You're not able to generate revenue using that property. So it's essential that your asset, first and foremost, is covered properly. I think secondly, now that we've spoken about the revenue generating asset, secondly, what's of critical importance is actually protecting that revenue. So should you have an event which shuts down your business premises, you're not able to operate or generate the revenue which you were previously, it's very, very important for you to have an insurance program or solution in place to cover the revenue that you'll be losing while you're reinstating or while you're building or while a claim is being attended to. Because if you don't, that revenue is gone. And it's not just the revenue that you've lost, it's also your market. Because when a guest, for example, calls Leirel's B&B and I say, oh, I'm out of commission, I had a lightning strike and we're doing repairs, that guest is going to call someone else to assist them. And the risk in that is that guest may not come back to Leirel's B&B at the end of the day. So it's important to protect, to have a plan or solution in place to protect your revenue so that you can claim back the revenue you lost while your business was down as a result of the claim event. And then Lastly, I would say critical, and Rosemary touched on this as well, is your liability covers. These three risks or sectors or segments that I've mentioned are the kind of have the potential to shut down or close down a business. An asset being destroyed has the potential to close down a business. You not having your revenue insured has the potential to put you out of business. You suffering a significant liability. I mean, the example Rosemary gave was so key and so real, where you have an exec coming from an international destination, gets an injury at your property, which alters their life so significantly that they need to live, that they're unable to perform their job going forward. Is your liability insurance sufficient to cover that kind of loss without putting you out of business? I think those are the three sectors which are really, from a SATIB perspective, extremely important when we speak with our clients.
That's very interesting. And I think I want to go back to Rosemary, just to hear from you, Rosemary. Has there been some sort of saving grace where you realize that one of your clients, or maybe a member from out of Gauteng or somewhere else, where they actually had an issue, and you personally believe that if it wasn't insurance, they would have shut down? I'm just trying to follow from what Leirel is talking about. Yeah.
That is absolutely for sure, because like with in Pietermaritzburg, they were the bowls championship. They were a soccer championship in another province. All that people were in the same position like me, where we already planned, we bought, we already employed extra staff that we trained for 3 months to help these people. And then 17th March, COVID was announced. The 25th, nobody could travel. So then the people that were correctly insured could claim their losses from the insurance. I don't want to say now which insurance I use, but it doesn't matter. I've got a lot of guest houses who use Bright. I've got a lot of guest houses who use Sundam. It's an open field. I'm not sure how the other people assisted the people, but I know what the assistance in the first critical leg were that helped us. But now it's also turning for the bad, because there's no business. I don't know, perhaps other people are having business. The business we are getting is bulkers, prostitutes that don't want to pay, and robbers, people who come in, they stay one night and the next morning all your TVs are gone. So with the guest houses at the moment, I think they lack to take the full paper trail. Leirel will also say that it's extremely important to know where the person comes from and where he's going. We had a situation, I'm just talking now on what happened to me. We had a situation where two prostitutes booked in with one guy, but a client of hers paid their rooms, and they didn't even have the card on. They could have robbed us. So it's really, but they also, luckily we noticed that it's a stolen card, and we could ask them to leave. It turned up in a fight, but it's unfortunately where we are. We are getting people who don't want to pay, and they're trying to rip us off. So that's where we need to sit around with the insurance to say, what is the way forward? Also with the insurance, you do get trauma counseling, because if there is it takes 4 minutes for robbers to rob a whole guest house, 4 minutes. And I say there's a training school for them. It's impossible that all of them can work in sync. So in 4 minutes, they take all the TVs, the phones, the microwaves, everything. If you don't have cameras, I know times are difficult, but have footage, have paper trails. Who's the guy booking with you? Checking Google, checking Facebook, checking LinkedIn, all over. Who is booking with you?
Wow.
Cut your losses.
Yes, I like what you're talking about there in terms of paper trail, and I think And this is where I want to bring you in. She's talking about being able to clearly keep record of the client, where they come from, where they are going. Do you want to highlight maybe some of the initiatives that you're doing at Jurni in terms of paper trail, and also maybe comment on some of the things that have already been said about the insurance and why people need to be covered?
Yeah, thanks, Tsepo. I think there's quite a few key things that were mentioned, earlier by both speakers, Leirel and Rosemary, obviously, in terms of just the whole mitigation aspect of insurance, the whole liability aspect as well. I think those are very, very important. As most participants may know, that Jurni is has launched basically a booking system that assists them also in the whole paper trail, because I think not only does the booking system just operate as a booking system, but it also has, a PMI that at least assists in making sure that you've got records that at least are stored in terms of that. But I just want to highlight as well, Tsepo, that it's important to note that insurance will not make activities safer, and will neither reduce the possibility of or nor stop incidents from happening. As you heard from Rosemary, these things are happening all the time. Insurance is usually a part of that post incident component of the risk management process I spoke about earlier. So it's an important thing. You don't know. Something was mentioned by Leirel, which spoke to an experience we had certainly in our business as well. The whole shipping delays that we experienced that cost us millions of rands as a result of the Ever Given in the Suez Canal. And if a lot of our business had not taken insurance, we probably would be very, very much exposed. So it just talks to the importance of taking up insurance. But I'd like to just poke Leirel here, because in my experience, a lot of the insurance packages, offerings, I've found they're more designed towards assisting, your larger properties that have either 20 or more rooms. We need to, because we are mandated basically as Jurni to also look at the SMMEs and how have they accommodated the smaller person? Because, the advert kind of says it, I think, in the advert, there's mention of the fact that in these hard times, it's very easy to just switch off and just stop paying your insurance premiums. It's, because people are just cash strapped. But how have you packaged, perhaps, as an insurance industry? I'm not talking in particular as SATIB, but I've noted that a lot of your, for instance, your packages and offerings, insurance offerings, are designed towards your bigger, properties. And do you perhaps have anything that you've designed in particular for the smaller SMMEs, who are growing their business?
Sandile, yeah. I think that's a very, very good point, very good question you're raising. And to me, the question that you've asked points to, I know we probably won't all agree, but the question you've asked, for me, the answer is get yourself a proper insurance broker. There are various products out there on the market. And each of these products, you have the ability to customize coverages. You have the ability to add and take out and increase and decrease certain covers, which may apply to a bigger concern, but doesn't apply to your business, or which may vice versa apply to your business and doesn't apply to the mega facilities or businesses. So my answer, my quick fire answer to your question is, you need to speak with someone that knows what's happening in the insurance market, because traditionally when people think insurance, they think of 2 or 3 large insurers. And even within those 2 or 3 large insurers, you find that they have specialist teams, or they've created specialized solutions, because I think the time where we focus on mega corporations has passed. It's not the mega corporations that are going to stimulate our economy. It's our SME and SMME segment that's going to push us over the line to the next level. And so these are the places where I think a lot of companies are beginning to see the value of building bespoke solutions for these segments, because I cannot, Sandile, sit across from a small business owner and approach his insurance program the same as I would a mega concern. It's 2 totally different things. It doesn't make sense for me to sell him a product that gives him all of these beautiful benefits and he's paying a big premium for it, but at the end of the day, he's never going to make use of what I'm selling him, because it's not meant for his kind of business. So my answer to your question, simply put, speak to a broker who knows the hospitality and tourism industry, because this person will be able to guide you in terms of what you should go for, what you shouldn't look at, because as a broker, it's my responsibility not only to sell you an insurance product, it's my responsibility to look at your risk, understand your risk, and then develop a bespoke solution which speaks to your situation. And you know, going for the mass market solution, it's just not going to work. You are going to have to speak with someone who understands what's out there in the market, as well as if it's not out there, knows who to connect with to make someone aware that there's a gap in the market. And a specialist broker or a broker who understands the industry is certainly key in assisting our SME and SMME segment as far as the insurance needs are concerned.
If I may just chat in, Tsepo, I know that, you know, I think one of the key things that, you know, I would encourage perhaps our participants to have a look at, you spoke about some of the systems we're developing, and obviously our booking system goes beyond, and it provides also just an inventory management system, which will assist to a very great degree on that record keeping that you know, Rosemary spoke about. I would really invite them to visit our website, you know, that basically talks us at large about that. But also, perhaps just as a general question, you know, without ignoring some of the questions that have started coming up, I know that at the moment there is no, unlike other industries, no requirement like when you're studying a chauffeur drive business, you know, moving people, there's a strict requirement from the Department of Transport to have that liability insurance. But when you're studying a B&B, for instance, there is no legal requirement to can do that. So it's up to you as a businessman to basically look at those potential risks that could happen to your business. And part of those not only just affect the physical structure, but also affect, you know, for instance, the very guests that could potentially come to your place. So it's something that I thought we should throw in here, because it's got probably nothing to do so much with Leirel, but it has to do with us as an industry. Yeah. So which is why such discussions, engagements are very important, you know.
I think Sandile, that's really a very, very good point you're making. And you know, from a broker's perspective, as I mentioned earlier, when you engage with the client, it's important to understand their business in order for you to see the risks that they're faced with in that business, and then to structure the appropriate plan. I think your suggestion really ties in perfectly from an insurance perspective, because when there is a set list of requirements, for lack of a better expression, it then becomes an easy point of departure for an insurance broker to begin engaging with their client, knowing in the back of my mind that there is a list of risks which I need to consider for this client before I've even spoken with the client. So having a set framework in place to guide everyone in the value chain is certainly, I think it will be a game changer.
Yeah, I think it will be. And I think I want to just invite a comment from Rosemary to hear what she also thinks, and maybe to hear a new view for myself.
Thank you very much. I first of all want to mention to Leirel also that the association have insurance NIA SA guy on board. He do all the insurance. So NIA, make sure if you sign up that your insurance is in place, because a lot of people don't think it is important. Yeah. That's the most important thing that you need to do, is to get that in place. That's, if people say to me, I'm going to start a guest house, I say, listen, this and this and this, but get your insurance rolling, because you already have the property. So be careful. The other thing that insurers lack, I don't care who I take on now, is reporting of incidents. I mean, insurers need to send out lists of current things that's happening, bulking, people who check into places, stealing, people hijacking, robbing. That's all the things, because if we have, Sandile, well, now I've been talking many years about this. If you have a circle where most wanted people, say for instance, Robert stayed here and he uses drugs and he destroyed my room, this one, but eventually if that people report you again to the association or Department of Tourism, we know that guy has done that same thing, 3 or other guest houses. We've got business people who make a booking. We had a place in Umhlanga where the same businessman make a booking, and a couple of years, and luckily our previous admin guy, Mr. Bob Hunter from NIA, he picked it up. It's a strange surname, and he went back. So every time you make a booking for him, his family, his mother, and then the evening before they come, somebody died, but his mother died twice. And then he wants his money back, because now they play and then use it out of money. So we need to know the scammers, because the scammers will help everybody in the industry, even car rentals. They know how many cars. You know, I had at my property 2 stolen cars that they never returned to rentals. They just left. So where do I find now with whom did he rent a car? Yeah. So sometimes they give up the wrong address. The car rentals don't check with us if Robert has booked with me. So there's a lot of loopholes where we can actually tighten the rope around the people's neck. That's the culprits.
Yeah, and I think, Rosemary, what you're talking about is one of the initiatives that Jurni is working on as part of building the future, to centralize information so that we can be able to start tracking the traveler, not to steal their information, not to spy on them, but to be able to know who they are, where do they come from, what do they do, what do they rent. And this will help, because it will provide access to information to also guest houses. And just, Leirel, just going back to what Rosemary was talking about, I just want to know from your experience, she spoke about scammers. And the first thing that already came to my mind is, what sort of claims, I want to call them bogus, I want to call them fraud, what sort of claims have you guys in the industry experienced that were like scam, whereby, you know, like we know in the industry, there's been a lot of credit card scam, there's been so many things, but what sort of claims are you dealing with? Are they high? Are they low? Are they normal?
Tsepo, before I answer your question, I just, you know, Rosemary raised something which I think is really important. In what she was saying, I could pick up that there's no cross-segment engagement. So the insurers aren't feeding back what's happening in the market from a risk perspective to yourselves. And similarly, we may not be seeing the events that you're experiencing on ground level. And I think it's critically important. Traditionally, I know people don't like talking to their brokers. They don't like talking insurance. But I think we've gotten to a place in our society where it's critical for us to take hands and work as one unit. I have a phrase which I like to say to all of my clients. I say to them that your business is my business. If it goes well with your business, it will go well with my business. If it goes badly in your business, it will go badly in my business. We're directly linked. And I think now more than ever as an industry, from an insurer perspective to an accommodation provider perspective, we need to take hands, share information, and brainstorm initiatives that will make our industry stronger. And just getting to your actual question, Tsepo, I think the kinds of claims that we're seeing is really typical of the times that we're living in. So with COVID breaking out, and I'd even go so far as to say pre-COVID, the economic situation of our people is not as good as it should be. And as a result, people become desperate. People think up schemes to either defraud or steal physical property or dupe people into letting go of their funds. And some critical risks that we're seeing coming up specifically in the accommodation industry is, I'm not sure what the scam or what it's called, but what happens is literally a guest books with a credit card, comes in, stays at your facility, leaves, and everything is hunky-dory. A week later, you get a notification from the bank telling you that they've been instructed to reverse the payment that was made because it was fraudulent. From an insurance perspective, this is absolutely new. It's something that we've begun seeing sort of in the last 12 months. And so in terms of a product or an insurance solution, I can tell you at this point, there is none. They may be under development, but they're not in existence at this point. And so as an accommodation provider, you run the risk of losing those funds, because when you speak to the bank will say to you, sorry, we are obliged to follow our client's instructions. He's made us aware of a fraudulent transaction. We'll be reversing the funds, and it's a dead loss. And this is one modus operandi that we have begun picking up over the last 8 to 12 months. It's starting to happen more frequently. What the solution is at this point, I don't know. Perhaps what Rosemary mentioned is possibly a solution, building some kind of red list, for lack of a better word, which is available to all accommodation users. So when you get a booking from this person, you know that they've been flagged. In addition to that, what we're also beginning to see, and what's becoming a lot more frequent, Tsepo, is theft by staff. This is a situation, and this varies. Anything from electronics to bedding to towels to, soaps, lotions, to alcohol. And this is becoming more frequently because in many cases, these people are so desperate and they find themselves in a situation where they have easy access to these things and they know the controls that are in place at the guest house or the facility. And so it's easy to bypass those controls and get away. So staff fraud has and theft is also something that we're beginning to see a huge increase in. And other than that, I would think that an additional risk that's really showing its ugly head is cyber risks. And predominantly, this is guys breaking into your computer system and locking it up and holding you for ransom, or threatening to take your client's information and sell it to a third party if you don't pay them. This is something that we're seeing emerging at the highest levels. We've had massive breaches in our country, and we're not talking about small businesses. We're talking the likes of Joburg or City Power. We're talking the likes of Rand Water. We're talking the likes of Liberty. And if these mega institutions can be hacked, you better believe that they're going to try and get into your business as well. And we need to build and model our risk management plans around these new and emerging trends.
No, that's quite interesting, and I think it's starting to talk to a lot of things. Recently, checking in at a hotel, and I was asked for my credit card and my ID, and I was offended. And I'm listening to you, and I'm thinking, how do they actually protect themselves? How do they even know that the credit card belongs to me, even though it's from my wallet? I'm standing in front of them. So we will have to continuously look at technology that can help property owners in order for them to be able to be sure that the person standing in front of them, it's actually the actual person who owns the card that they are holding. I think before we go further, I just want to invite our participants. I see we have a full house. If they can just go into Q&A and ask us questions, any question, so that we don't run out of time. There are a few questions that came through, and I just want to read them out. Then we can just decide who must answer them. Okay, the other ones are comments, but there's a question here. It says, is there an industry rating of incidents system or database? I don't know, Rosemary or Sandile, do you want to take that one?
If I may, you know, I mean, I'm not aware of right now. I mean, a couple of years back, way back, 2012, 2013, you know, the whole tourism safety initiative, which, you know, TSI was started, and that has since been replaced over the last year or so. You know, I think that's where we had a database of incidents that Rosemary was talking about. You know, in your introduction, you did say part of what I do is obviously to head up the South African Vehicle Rental and Leasing Association, where there's high risks. And, you know, I need to just touch on some of the things we're doing right now with the Department of Transport for the verification of IDs, for instance. You know, as because we have a similar situation in the car rental sector, for instance, where how do you verify the person that's in front at the counter that to take this, you know, expensive asset worth over 200,000? So these are talks, because we're talking about an online, you know, a sort of verification system that's linked to either NETIS or any of the home affairs, you know, systems. So these are things that I think the industry has also need to explore, because there's a whole lot of risks. But to answer Mark, I'm not aware right now. There were also issues, I recall, when we utilized online intelligence extensively. There were also issues, particularly in the restaurant sector. You know, whilst this thing was fairly utilized with car rental and perhaps other industries, including certainly these smaller, you know, Rosemary's association. But there were issues of competition that were making hotels, for instance, very uncomfortable, because then it impacts on their business, that they are viewed as, oh my goodness, then the chances of that besmatching the name of a particular brand. So that in itself created a problem. But I must say that it's something that, Mark, we really need to look at. And I'm a believer in such databases, because at a click, you are able to know that this person has had a problem in, you know, property A, property B, and was reported. So he's like, you know, a no-no type, you know, customer. So yes, but at the moment, I'm not aware of any existing incident system, really. It's something that, Rosemary, you want to add?
One thing that I want to tell the visitors on our portal today is, you know, we are all strapped for cash, and all of us are working on half of our rates. As the minister suggests we must do, but we are already doing it for a year. And now, to cut costs, a guest house owner and even hotels don't clean the rooms every day. Now, a person check in and he stay for a week. Now, if you don't check your rooms every day, how do you know if everything is in place? Because we have people that come and stay in guest houses and hotels. They bring their old pillows, then they take your new pillows out and they just put the covers over, things like that. They walk out with their TVs. It's real. But murders, we have murders in hotels and especially guest houses, where people go and they find out, but people don't clean the rooms every day. So 3 days or 4 days later, people complains about the smell. Then you get the lady and the baby killed, or things like that. So what effect does that have? Now the whole room must be sanitized, cleaned, then furniture need to be replaced. So the insurance have to kick in. Are you insured for the correct purposes? And then your room is out of order. For how long? It can take up to 2 weeks to get a room in place, because you need to replace the bed. We had a situation where somebody at one of our guest houses, and we got out the crime intelligence cleaners to come and help clean up. So now all your guests see all of a sudden bodies are being carried out, and so now your guests leave. So you are covered now for the covering of the room, but what about the future stuff that comes from that? Another thing with crime is that people come to check a room. Now, in a guest house, you cannot let people come in to check a room. Nobody. The main thing is you don't know whether they hold you up with a gun and they lock you in the room and then they take all your stuff. So everybody's website must be in place, that people can just go and look for each room on the website, that you must contain your risk.
Yeah.
The insurance can come down with lower premiums if we work together and contain our risk.
I think maybe let me take it back. Rosemary, any closing words? And then I'll go to Leirel.
Yes, I mean, there was something on my mind that I wanted to go to him. I just want to think, it slipped my mind now, sorry.
So Tsepo, I think in closing from my side, what I really want to leave the floor with is, when you are strapped for cash, canceling your insurance outright is not a good decision. My recommendation is speak to your broker and restructure your insurance program to make it more affordable for the time that you need to save the extra cash. Canceling your insurance is really not an option. And also, just in closing, the cheapest insurance is not always the best insurance. So be very careful what you actually end up buying. Make sure that you're insuring with a reputable insurer and via a reputable broker. Thank you.
Thank you. Ntatenziwani, your closing words?
Yeah, no, thanks for organizing this. I think it's important for us to look at, further communication just to assist as part of our consumer education responsibility as well. Insurance might play a very, very major part of the recovery process as well. And I just believe I'd like to encourage, as Leirel has said, that we shouldn't, it's not an option. Let me quote him. It's really not an option not to have one. But certainly, I think you need to dig deeper as an insurance industry on how well you can basically service, particularly because what worries me is that there is no statutory requirement, and that kind of worries me. But it's something that we need to look at internally as a tourism industry as well, both at the level of TBCSA, but also at our level, Tsepo, as Jurni. But certainly, I'd like to thank you again for organizing this important discussion.
Thank you very much. Last words from Rosemary.
Thank you very much. I think it was very interesting, and I'm glad I could be here. One thing also, if there's any guest houses that need assistance, they can contact me immediately and we'll guide them, because we are in the industry and we know what's working and what is not working. And the more, I believe in numbers. If we have numbers, then we go to our insurer and we say, listen, we've got so much numbers. This is what we want to be added extra to, and perhaps they will look at it.
Yeah.
Because you are the voice.
Yes. The more we work together, the bigger our voice it is to the stakeholders, to the businesses. So yes, I agree with you, Rosemary. And thank you very much, Leirel, for making time. Thank you very much, Ntatenziwani. Thanks again, Rosemary. Thanks to all the participants and everyone who has asked us questions. We will share the video. We will share the questions and answers that were asked to everyone who attended and those that RSVP'd but did not make it. Thank you very much and have a lovely afternoon.
You too.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Cheers. Bye.
Stay safe.